Welcome to this morning's stand session on the Manchester stand at MIPIM, the third of this week's conference. This morning's presentation is all about science and business, and specifically turning big science into big business. I'm Mike Emmerich, I'm the Chief Executive of New Economy, and those of you who've been at these stand sessions the last few years will know that we've been on a bit of a science journey. I think it's now 4 years that we've been talking about science. First in a theoretical sense, then banging on about my best friend graphene, showing samples of graphene, talking about how we're going to build facilities. And that's all been a journey towards what we really want out of science from an economic point of view, which is jobs, growth, and Manchester being at the heart of a scientific revolution that generates prosperity for our people. And that's why it's very apposite that science came up at the event yesterday with Jim O'Neill and Bruce Katz, with us and the other cities talking about the importance of science, and why I'm very pleased that our speaker today is Chris Oglesby, who with Rowena Burns is going to talk in a very practical sense about how some of the theoretical scientific subject matter that we've had in the last few discussions about science at MIPIM are now turning into practical, concrete proposals on the ground, which should really play to all of our interests at MIPIM and get us thinking about how we can go forward as a city together on the important issue of science and business. Without any further ado, can I introduce Chris Oglesby?
Cheers, Mike. Well, good morning, everyone, and good morning to all of the Bruntwood team back at City Tower, which I think we're streaming live to via the camera. It's great to be back at MIPIM. I don't know about the rest of you, but through the recession, I've found it very refreshing getting away from the day-to-day, getting out here to Cannes with the great strategic programs that the city's put on, and really stepping back and just keeping focused on that big strategic picture. But it's great to see a little bit more of a spring in everyone's stride this year. There's definitely a bit of a mood of optimism around. It's always a privilege getting up here and being part of the city's very well thought through strategic programme of events. But this year particularly, it's been a brilliant effort with over 50 delegates here, the strongest presence for a long time. And the fact that there's been such a strong presence isn't something that's happened by accident. As Howard said the other day at the Liverpool joint event, the fact that Airport City has suddenly got major Chinese investment hasn't just happened by accident. And the fact that Manchester's got a really strong delegation here hasn't been an accident. It's the fact that the city has continued to invest through the downturn in doing MIPIM really well. Where others have cut back or stopped completely. And I guess that's the theme really for this year, that things don't happen by accident. There are a series of interdependencies, and the mind map up here shows that for science. A number of different things contribute. And it feels just at the moment that as we come out of recession, all that hard work that we all have been putting in through the downturn and that dogged long-term strategic focus, that insistence on maintaining that long-term strategic vision is about to come to fruition for Manchester. And nowhere, I don't think, is this better illustrated than the topic that we're going to cover today, where big science meets big enterprise. Because the fact that Manchester is well placed in this area isn't an accident. Look at all of this here. Sure, we have a history of major scientific discoveries over the last century, and as the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution, we know a thing or two about business in Manchester. But the fact that the city's so well placed in 2014 is down to a huge number of things that over the last 20 years or so are coming to fruition. I don't know how many of you were there at Bruce Katz yesterday, but I thought it was absolutely fantastic. When you listen to Bruce talk about the Metropolitan Revolution and the exemplar US cities that he was talking about, he could easily have been talking about Manchester. I could go on for hours about the various different elements that make up this mind map and how we all got here. But there's two things I'd particularly just like to stress. Something that we always seem to come back to at these sessions, the city's history of working in public-private partnership, and importantly, with that partnership working for the greater good. And the forward thinking of the city to recognise that there was something very special in the corridor, and to establish initially through Manchester Knowledge Capital and then from 2006 the corridor partnership. So like so many great things, with hindsight, it seems so obvious now, but it wasn't always so. The corridor at the time was characterised by some inward-looking academic institutions and a retail and leisure offer that was targeted at binge-drinking undergraduates. It wasn't a great place. But the city recognised its potential and founded the partnership. That partnership is now funded by the city, the two universities, the Central Manchester Foundation Trust, Bruntwood, with a board that's then completed by MSP, the Corner House Cinema, the RNCM and Arup. For those of you not from Manchester, the corridor is 243 hectares directly to the south of the city centre, home to two of the most applied to universities, with over 70,000 students and the largest clinical academic campus in Europe. This unique concentration of educational research, technological and cultural assets generates currently 2.8 billion of GVA per annum, 23% of the city's total. Now, throughout the recession, the corridor partners have continued to invest over £1 billion in the last 7 years. And this continued investment, coupled with the continued urbanisation of science and technology business, as Bruce talks about yesterday, the increasing importance of the universities, the increasing international outlook of the universities, the recognition now that innovation comes from collaboration rather than isolative, secretive working, the changing demographics of the student population, and particularly the increase in mature and international students who have a more grown-up requirement from their place, from their residential accommodation, and from the places retail and leisure offer. And the fact that all of these different things are so aligned with the Manchester strategy means that the corridor is really ready to take off, if you'll excuse the rather strange sort of metaphor about flying corridors. So by 2020, there's already a further £2.5 billion of investment committed. That's 2.5 billion pounds in the next 6 years in the corridor. That will see the corridor's GVA increase over that period by 70% to 4.8 billion, with major further development opportunities right down its length. And here are the main projects that are really driving it. So to the north of the corridor, it's anchored at the top by the Town Hall complex. It's very fitting, particularly as it was a city that spotted the asset that it had on the corridor. And they've been fully engaged throughout, with leader Richard Leese rarely missing a corridor board meeting. And now, as the £225 million project on the civic buildings and square approaches completion, the corridor has a fantastic new northern gateway. Next, to the south, are the four major St Peter's Square new office buildings. Number 1, which is on site. Number 2, which is about to start speculatively. And numbers 3 and the Landmark, all with planning permission granted. In all, more than 700,000 square feet of new office space. Next door on Oxford Street, you've got the three of the big giants of the Manchester office market: Bridgewater House, St James's, and Churchgate and Lee. The former two are owned by Bruntwood and have had a great run of lettings recently, with over 10% of the total city's take-up in 2013, whilst Churchgate and Lee were yesterday acquired by Helical Bar in a deal that would indicate that they have big plans for these buildings. And on the Oxford Street intersection with Portland Street, Bruntwood are in the process of creating co-working and collaboration space for the creative and digital sectors at this important intersection between the knowledge corridor and the commercial core. Add to this Barbarolli, Peterhouse and the new St Peter Square buildings, and you have more than 2 million square feet of office space in this very dense cluster of buildings. It's great to see the cranes finally on First Street. The corridor has a fantastic cluster of cultural assets, and in addition to its knowledge assets, this gives it a particular competitive advantage in the creative and digital sector. Nowhere, I feel, is the power of cultural development as a catalyst for commercial development better illustrated than at First Street, where number 1 First Street has filled up and seen rents double since the announcement of the £26 million development of Home, the combined building for the Corner House and Library Theatre. Next door at Oxford Road Station, there's a major new development opportunity shortly coming to the market, with the station itself increasing in its importance with the Northern Hub works. And across the road, the city have approved a strategic regeneration framework for the former BBC site to create a high-quality, commercially-led, mixed-use development which contributes to the city's knowledge economy and reflects the site's location within the corridor and proximity to major institutions. Across Upper Brook Street, and the consolidation of the university's estate post the UMIS merger continues at a pace, with North Campus possibly coming to the market shortly to offer a major development site shortly. Back on Oxford Road, and MMU have invested over £200 million recently on its All Saints campus. Of particular note is the sheer quality of the buildings that MMU have put up. The Business School and the Art School have to be the best new build and refurbishment project, respectively, in the city in recent years. And over at Burley Fields, a further £140 million has been invested by MMU on a new 11-acre site for its faculties of education and health, psychology and social care. This development is looking to go one better than carbon neutral and actually have a positive environmental impact. And MMU has been the catalyst for the original vision for Technopark to start moving again. Who can have missed UK Fast taking One Archway, joining web hosting firms Telecity, ANS and Melbourne? And behind the rather drab exterior, they've created some of the most innovative office space in the city region. Back on Oxford Road, and more cultural investment with the world-renowned Conservatoire, the Royal Northern College of Music, building a new £7 million, 750-seat concert hall. Across the road, Bruntwood's £60 million, 400,000 square foot redevelopment of Manchester Business School starts this summer, with a new 214-room, 4-star Crown Plaza and 120-bed Staybridge suite, world-class teaching facilities and a new exec ed centre. And across the other side of Oxford Road, Manchester University is now on site with the new £61 million National Graphene Institute. The NGI will put the commercialisation of this new wonder material right at the heart of the corridor. Elsewhere on its campus, the University of Manchester has a staggering further £1 billion of investment in its estate up to 2022, in addition to the £750 million already spent since 2004, all designed to cement its position as one of the top 20 universities in the world. Down at the Central Manchester Foundation Trust campus, and our new £28 million, 100,000 square foot City Labs redevelopment on the former Royal Eye Exchange is opening in June. This biomedical facility features fully fitted labs, training space, collaboration space in the atrium, and such has been the interest in the scheme that we're planning, working up schemes at the moment for City Labs 2 and 3. And on the core Central Manchester Foundation Trust site, they're investing a further £50 million following the recent £500 million transformation of the Manchester Royal Infirmary, the Children's Hospital and St Mary's. And then there's MSP, where we've got very significant plans, which Rowena is going to talk about in more detail later. So an incredible amount happening. Forgot about that last little twist. There's more happening down the corridor than there are in most cities, let alone in a single district. And now I'll hand over to Rowena, who'll talk a little bit more about the science behind it.